Hello, everybody. It's the Alco Diesel Guy with what is becoming an annual sort of tradition for me to review a Christmas train set. This year, it's going to be another N-scale train set because that's the gauge I've been working in as of late, called the Merry Christmas Express. This is again by Bachmann. It's similar to that Jingle Bell, I believe it was, Express I had last year, or pardon me, that wasn't Jingle Bell. The Christmas it was called the Christmas Spirit Express, or something of that nature. Anyway, I'll link a video to it. You'll see it in that description. In sharp contrast, that was a passenger train set. This one is, in fact, a freight set. So without further ado, let's get right into it and see what we got here. Typical Bachmann set. It's covered with plastic. So we'll get that off first. Looking inside, we have the usual / obligatory for a Bachmann train set. Easy track. In this case, for N-scale, as always, it's always nickel silver. I notice they really don't seem to make a steel alloy nickel silver. That's not a criticism, because the steel alloy is the stuff that tends to corrode. It's a nice little touch there. We have a boxcar, and we have a caboose, as well as a gondola car, and of course a locomotive. I think that's the same one I had last year. I'm going to have to look at that later on. Looking at the back, we have the usual propaganda, as I call it, showing you what kind of track layouts you can have. But please note, this is just as a standard 24-inch circle. I'll show it to right over here, a 24-inch circle ring of track. There are no straight sections, it's just a circle. It's even more basic than the one I reviewed last year. You get the usual power pack, and in the description again we have the usual 060. I believe that is the same engine I had last year. Boxcar hopper, as I mentioned, as well as a bobber caboose. They call these bobbers because of how small they are. Because they give very rough rides due to their short wheelbase. They tended to give the crews very rough rides. That's where that nickname comes from. Again, the 20-inch circle of easy track. The power pack, illustrated manual, this being the power pack right here. And we have the same thing sort of written in Spanish as well over here. I'll just give a shot at it to be more precise and complete. And here are the track plans I was telling you about. This is one I keep trying to think about building. One of these days I'm going to build that track layout. It would have probably been interesting. Maybe it's something I should have tried for Christmas at some point or this year, but nah, I was thinking about it, I should say, but I changed my mind and did what I did. You'll see more information on that layout as time becomes available. And again, a little disclaimer here. This train set is not a toy. It is designed for children 14 years and up, according to this now. So again, this is not a kid's toy. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Pardon my voice, it's still breaking up pretty badly. I don't know what I have. My voice was back a while ago and it seemed to have gone away. Gonna now go ahead and open the side of the box up here and open this package up. Okay, let's get right into it. We'll start off with our bobber caboose, which is basically standard, I should say, production Bachmann. It has body-mounted couplers, which is a new upgrade Bachmann has been doing with its rolling stock as of late. It has metal wheels, but they're permanently mounted to the bottom, and they have small flanges, so don't expect a great handling caboose. Speaking of bobbers, this gets its nickname again for the rough ride, and that's because of the short wheelbase. You hit a lot of tracks with this thing, it's going to go bouncing all over the place. Very basic detailing. Again, all it really has to show for itself as being a Christmas-themed train set caboose is the fact that it's been given this reef, which is nicely printed onto the side, as well as the North Pole Express logo on the top here. North Pole and Southern. So that's an interesting rare. I've never heard of that one. Obviously made up for this particular train set, if I'm honest. And here we have, again, a standard issue 40-foot Bachmann boxcar. Again, body-mounted couplers, The one-piece Bachmanns. Unlike most recent products from Bachmann, which have been for the longest time, like this slightly older one. Again, this is standard issue Bachmann, where the coupler is actually part of the truck. Same exact coupler design, again, except mounted to the truck. This particular unit has the couplers, or I should say this particular boxcar has the couplers actually mounted to the truck, mounted to the body itself. Better for reliability in terms of making sharp curves. Though I've had mixed results working with these. It depends on what kind of locomotive you're having. Pull these things in terms of how they work or how well they'll work. And again, not much to see here, just with a big bow printed on the side to emphasize that this is a Christmas train. Then we have our Merry Christmas gondola car, which says Merry Christmas on it, has garland printed on the side. Again, body-mounted couplers and just standard issue trucks. Nothing fancy here. Does the job, but nothing really much to look at here. I should also mention all these cars, again, have that small flange on it, so these are not very good at handling tight turns, I find. Even with weight, I find that these aren't the greatest wheels. I don't go nuts over seeing metal wheels on these. They really don't help very much, as they've been slimmed down by Bachmann for whatever reason. The body-mounted couplers are certainly appreciated from Bachmann. Let me explain what the advantage is. Let's say you have a situation in which you have, I've got a caboose in this case, with a truck-mounted coupler, and we have a locomotive with a body-mounted coupler, which most locomotives, of course, are body-mounted because of the way they're designed these days. You go around a curve. The caboose, of course, once the train obviously turns, the caboose's coupler turns and also pushes against the coupler on the locomotive. But because the coupler on the locomotive only has so much range, it's going to eventually cause this truck to get pushed out of alignment, especially if it's on a sharper curve, and cause it to derail, which is the big problem right there. That's why these body-mounted couplers are often sought at. So you're probably thinking, what's the big deal? Bachmann made the change. Bravo, Bachmann. Not exactly. Let's take a look at, the caboose I had here just a second ago with that truck-mounted coupler. As we can see here, it has a pretty good range of moving back and forth. We take a look at the body-mounted coupler variants of Bachmann's cars used on this particular train set, and as we can see very clearly, the motion of the truck has been noticeably reduced. This essentially means that while Bachmann has gotten rid of one problem, they've caused another, and that these cars will never make the same tight radius curves as these older cars will, because the trucks are incapable of turning sharp enough, because this coupler box obscures the truck from making a full turn. So it's not clear as to what Bachmann thought they were accomplishing here, or why they haven't changed them, because these body-mounted couplers have been around for a while now, and all I can see them doing is actually reducing the abilities these coaches and freight cars, etc., have that possess these particular couplers. And now here's the pièce de résistance, the steam engine that propels us, and of course it has to be a steam engine for a Christmas train. Again, not much to see here. It's the North Pole Southern, which of course is again a fictitious railroad, number 25. The detail is all kind of just put on here. It's all plastic molded into it, or essentially molded in, or some very minimal parts attached. They don't look anything great because they're all molded on. You can even see this exposed screw on the top. That really is an insult. See if I can get this thing to cooperate with me. Focus. Yeah, if you look very carefully, there's a screw on the top here, just to really rub in that this is a cheap locomotive. And this is an 060 USR 060 steam locomotive with tender, as it's described, as this little board between this and the car and the wheels to allow it to transfer power. And in the past, I've had mixed results with these things working correctly. But the idea is now you have twice the pickups with all four of these helping to propel the thing. And that's basically it for the rolling stock itself. Next, we have the tracks, which are self-explanatory. This is just a single circle, so they're all curves. This is about as basic as possible. Then again, my first N-scale train set I got when I was about 8 or 9 years old was exactly the same idea. Just a bunch of curved tracks that made a single circle up, and that was it. Then, of course, underneath this box, we have the obligatory instruction manual. Back in the day, they used to actually give you DVDs with it, although that's long since stopped, since DVDs have gone the way of the well in the bucket. Over here, we have the rapido couplers in case you have old school equipment, or in case you wanted to turn one of these into converter cars. That's to say, put one rapido on one side and one knuckle on the other side, although these knuckles, I find, don't play nice with any other knuckle brand except Bachmann's, because of how basic they are. Again, there's no flex point on these couplers at all. They pivot themselves, but the coupler itself has no knuckle action. The knuckle is a one solid piece, so it doesn't work very well from what I've seen. You have to really mess with them to get them to hook up, and then they're a pain to get unhooked, and they're just really not great couplers, if I'm honest. That's why a lot of people who own these convert them to micro trains. I myself am getting into, I'm going to be involved in a project to rehabilitate some of my fleet by doing that. Okay, what else do we have here? And here's, of course, I mentioned before, the plug for the transformer. Again, this allows you to avoid the crossed wires. This literally plugs right into the transformer and then right into the track. Something Bachmann pioneered. And, of course, here we have the actual transformer / power pack. For the power pack, the plug you plug into the wall, essentially, to power the power pack, which is right over here. Again, a very basic one. No AC power, just the absolute minimal to get the job done. So without further ado, let's set this up and see how it works. Before I get on to assembling the loop of track this thing comes with, I really need to go into more details to just how pathetic this locomotive is. Again, as I mentioned before, there's that annoying screw at the top, which is already blatantly outrageous, but it gets worse. Typical Bachmann, as we see, this is designed to actually have 4 driving wheels for an 8-wheel configuration, 480, etc. Because as we see in the back here, where there should be a driving wheel, there is in fact a peg. And if we look very closely, there's in fact room for an axle that has been simply covered over the plate. Then we look at the front here, we can see that there is a screw in place of where there should very clearly be some kind of guide wheel in the front, so you could put like maybe a 480, etc. together, or 460, etc. together. So in short, this really is one of the worst examples of mass production I have seen since Tyco put out its infamous power torque drive, where the 4-axle truck was essentially the same as the 6-axle. The only difference was that the center axle was removed and made it a 4-axle for the 4 axles, and of course it was in place for a 6-axle engine. The track itself has 11 1/4 radius curves. It's actually a kind of a wide curve for N scales. We can see there are much sharper curves than these around. I guess it's to make the layout bigger. The simplest way is to include wider turning track to keep things interesting. Okay, let's get the track together. Now, before I get to putting the locomotive and cars on the track, I need to talk about this track because the quality on it is just beyond appalling. Bachmann may have enhanced its quality, but they are no Kato. And this might be nickel silver track, but you will not misstand it or mistake it for anything resembling Kato uni tracks. For example, these rail joiners are atrocious to line up. I had to bend many of this track up and down. In fact, here's another section that I didn't get in right. I thought I did. It should go in smooth and straight, but as you can clearly tell, it doesn't. So you have to end up going back here and bending the track back and forth to get these rail joiners to line up right. Only then will it go in, and even then, as you can see, it's reluctant. That one still didn't line up correctly. It's just really appalling junk. And what's really also appalling on this is that the rail joiners on this track may look like standard N-scale tracks. Joiners from Bachmann or someone else, they're not. They're a separate size that is not compatible. So if you have some of this hanging around and you're an old school N-scale modeler, used to putting up your train set from 30 years ago on the tree, you're going to be sorely disappointed that you can't use any of the parts unless you're going to use those tracks. Oh, boy. This is just appalling. And see, I can get one in but not the other. I may have to go back and bend this with a plier. It really is annoying that you have to do this kind of modification just to get this to fit. I can understand if this was used track that I had, but I literally just pulled this out of the package. This train set itself had never been opened, so there was no reason for it to have this problem. Okay, I think I got it in now. Just appalling junk. Anywho, before we get on to rerailing the locomotive, let's get the stuff out we need to actually make it work. That being the power pack and everything else. That wasn't part of the train. We have here our power pack assembly. This is the plug that literally goes into the speed controller, as they call it. And we have the speed controller itself. Again, this is the degraded one that does not have the AC adapter, AC accessories on it. It doesn't even lock on and off. But then again, since this is being marketed to a person 14 years and older, I guess that's how they get around it. So, let us set this up. Unwind that. Plug the connection in there. That gives us power. Put that right to the side, I guess, or move this a little bit over so I can stand it on the side of my bed there. Let me also get the track I told you about. This is the world-famous Bachmann plug. Mind you, this is still the same plug you would use with the older transformers. So yeah, if you have an older transformer and for whatever reason this goes out of commission and doesn't work on you, and you have an old set hanging around with this particular plug, you can literally plug that transformer directly into this track itself because it's the same plug. Just shows you how some things haven't changed. Although the original plug for HO was much bigger, that has changed. So again, this just plugs right into the rerailer itself, as we see right here. And once again, like everything else, it's not a happy camper. Getting quality control there. Finally it went in. I had to really force that thing in there. And then it's connected to the 2-track terminal on the transformer. As such, no crossed wires. Although not much of anything else, to be honest. Quality certainly is not there. That's one of the things you're not getting with it. So now I'm hooking myself up to a power source over here, aka a plug. Well, actually, let me hold off on plugging this thing in just yet. I want to now get my train on the track. This is a pretty simple procedure. We have a railer here. We base the locomotive in the direction we want it to run. It only has the one side there. Place it on the track, run it back and forth. As such, these couplers often don't work well with other cars, but in this case, as you can see, I'll probably zoom in on this. Here, as you can see, these couplers aren't even close to matching. Oh boy, what junk. Let me try another car. Old trick, if it doesn't work with one car, try another one. And these have body-mounted couplers. Interesting quirk on it. This is not engaging either. Oh, these are such garbage. There we go. That did work this time. Problem is, these cars really are not designed to couple on a curve. They really need a straight section. There it is, finally. Oh boy, that is not happy at all. Yep, these are definitely not going to be mistaken for any kind of Kato coupler. Ugh. Okay, so that's the 2 cars and the bobber caboose. On it comes. So hopefully it doesn't bob too much. And I have to point out, if you look right here, I don't know how well this will come out, but I'll take you off the tripod because I really want to illustrate this. Look at the difference in height between these 2 couplers here on the caboose to that gondola car. I mean, look at that. It's not even close to matching. It's way off. It's just stunning that this kind of junk passed someone's inspection to be put inside a box and be released to a person that is going to get into the hobby for the first time. And I know a lot of you are going to say, oh, it's just a toy. It's just a toy. Well, no, because according to the box, it's not a toy. It's for 14 years and older. So therefore, it should work better than a toy. And that excuse just does not fly anymore. You can't have it both ways. It's either a toy or it isn't. And according to the box, it clearly isn't. Okay, let me plug this thing in here. Let's see if I can plug this thing in. Okay, power pack is on. And yet I don't have any power. Oh, if I plugged the right adapter in, wouldn't it? Too many plugs, too many plugs, too many plugs. There we go. That should give me juice now. There it is. Finally, I got a light on the transformer. And let's give her a spin. Of course, it's going backwards. Let's throw that direction switch. Oh, wow. Yeah. Not impressive at all. A very rough runner indeed. And this just barely goes. It's jumping all over the place. Good God. Oh, I lost the caboose already. Oh, what a joke. And before those out there tell me, hey, you don't have a straight and level surface, well, that's the whole point of this track, isn't it? It's to make sure you don't need a straight and level surface to hook your trains up to. And again, a straight and level surface won't make a difference with this coupling height on this car. I mean, this is just appalling. It doesn't even come close to fitting where it's supposed to. Let's back this up a little bit here. Nope. Let's go that way. Oh my God. I mean, it runs appalling. I'm glad this is not my first train set, or I probably wouldn't get into the hobby. If my first Bachmann train set, which I did get many years ago, 30 plus years ago now, acted like this, I doubt I would have stayed in the hobby. Thank goodness it ran better than this thing does. Oh my God. Ugh. Yeah, I think I finally got it fastened again. Oh boy, this thing is not impressing me yet. I don't think it ever will. It goes again, and the locomotive is jumping all over the place. I lost the caboose again. I mean, this is just appalling junk. I think Bachmann could have saved a lot of trouble and just basically scrapped the plastic and metal they made this out of, as I don't see it lasting very long unless you got a true hardcore Bachmann collector in the audience watching this video, or one who owns one, because really this is pretty appalling. There it goes again. It lost the car. Now I understand why I've seen a few of these come out with Rapido couplers, because these other knuckles are so pathetic. I've forgotten how bad these knuckles work. Oh my God, talk about junk. Oh, you know what? I can't even do this anymore. A few of the details of those of you wondering if this light on the back of the tender works. I don't believe it does, but I don't think the front light works either on this locomotive. Nope. Even though it has pickups, that rear tender light does not function. And does the front headlight work? Nope. So no front headlight, no rear headlight. It might be a problem with this engine. But yeah, this is not impressing me at all. It is a steam engine. I guess it's about all you can say. But I feel like all over a twist that they gave us a steam engine. I should be happy with a steam engine instead of a diesel. Just really is appalling. And this track is beyond terrible. Look at this. It's already popped out over here. Ugh. Boy, talk about junk. Thank goodness this isn't my first train set, and thank goodness I have knowledge of much better things like Kato Uni tracks, because if not, this would destroy my Christmas. I'm telling you. And as evidenced by the topic of this video, as well as the shot of this Christmas tree twinkling, it is in fact getting close to Christmas. And so I figured what better way than finishing this particular train set review than running it on my new Christmas layout for 2024. I'm still working on this as of now. It's very close to Christmas. I just haven't had the time I had last year to put into it. As you can see, I have several different main lines, but most notably, I have this very tight and twisty section in the middle here. Now, I could have, of course, given this set a very easy time on the outer tracks, which, of course, have a much more generous curve that runs the R183, I believe that is, or the R45 183 curves, or I remember that's the correct one. One from Kato, yep, that's correct, the R183 45 curves are the sharpest they have. A bit on the tight side, but not too bad for these short 44-foot cars. But instead, I'm going to really give this thing a test and run them on the R150 45 curves. Curves of the inner section of the center section here, which is actually supposed to be an abandoned interurban. I have it designed as that was taken over. It has one access switch, and it exists basically to serve a chemical plant, which is still not shown up in the mail as of yet. It's going to be sitting right there, and that's essentially the idea is the railroad took the plant over, rather had to provide service to the plant, so they just took the line over and provided a switch to get access to it rather than build their own line to get through. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to run this particular train on this particular track. And yes, this is DCC, so I will be doing it analog. Yes, I know it's bad for the locomotive, but to be honest, I am so disappointed with this thing I could care less at this point. So let us go now and get my trusty DCS 50 over here and go into, let's go 00 and see how this thing works. Power everything on. First, that might help, wouldn't it? See, it's going to make that screaming noise. There's no short, it's just how it's going to run. And number 00 is being throttled up. Oop. Might help if I went forward with it. See if this thing can make it around. It's already not looking good. As I mentioned, and as you can see already, something already came off the track. The boxcar appears to have slightly derailed. Problem with these cars, again, is that while they are in fact they in fact now feature body-mounted couplers instead of truck-mounted couplers. I can tell this is how this review is probably going to go. The remainder of this review, I should say. They feature the new type trucks. Probably not new type trucks so much, but that's sort of the problem too with smaller flanges. But at the same time, do not have the ability, as I showed in that up close review of these particular freight cars, that they don't have the ability to turn quite as far as the original cars did. So as a result, I don't think this is even going to make it around. Pardon me, folks, but due to the quote-unquote reliability of the Bachmann couplers, I had to basically use 2 hands to recouple those cars. I'm pretty sure they're just going to come disconnected again. Oh, now it's actually following the direction controls correctly. That's interesting. See if we can make it around the track without coming unhooked. I think it already did. Cringe. Yep, it's off the track. What a joke. And there you go. So, yeah. It can't make sharp turns. It can't make easy turns. It's really kind of a waste. Okay, to be fair, and in fact, I think particularly too fair for this particular train set, let's give this a run to my second to outer loop of this particular line. Again, we have the 185 curves instead of the 150s. Let's see how it does here. Just clear the traffic off this main line. Let's see how she performs. Make sure I have it forward, throttle up. It's not responding very well now. What's going on here? Take 473. Let's try this one more time and see if I can get it to actually make a circuit of the layout. Or at least one of my circuits of the layout. Waiting for it to get stuck on something. It's nice to have a steam engine running, but I do have some DCC equipped ones, which I may try a little bit later on. Hint, hint, wink, wink. But this is what I have right now, and oh boy, if this were my only steam engine, I'd be pretty disappointed. It is running pretty well right now. Knock wood. Okay, so it does work. So final thoughts on this train set. It's junk, to be honest. It's overpriced. I paid $150 for it. I believe the last retail price for this is $200 and some odd. And you see right there, it got stuck. The quality control is horrendous. The new coupler design is a joke because it basically, while it gets rid of the issue with the couplers being connected to the trucks themselves, it goes and creates a new issue that's even worse, which makes it impossible for the trucks to turn beyond a certain point, which kind of eliminates the reason to actually have the trucks. The couplers mounted by the actual bodies instead of the trucks. So bottom line, this is a bit of a fail unless you can get a really good price for it. I would not recommend buying this. And that will do it for this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If not, thumbs down. Please like and subscribe. Have a Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Happy holidays.